This is much different.
Right?
This is
now we
much
actually
different.
see each other.
Yeah.
So I'm Andrew.
And I am Drew, and we're
That's
actually...
right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
1 month,
right.
everybody.
1 month. Yeah,
We're
we do
actually
it.
in person.
For the first time.
I'm staring Andrew deep in the...
Right in the eyes.
Those soulless eyes.
Yep. Wow. Ouch. See, okay, it's not fair because you got the natural light from the window, and you have
I look
blue
gorgeous.
eyes, so your eyes are all sparkly.
Yeah.
My eyes are green and dark, and I'm in the shadows.
You are in the shadow.
It's creepy.
Well,
But yeah, we're in person, but we're not doing video ones just yet. Even
not
though
quite.
We probably could because I have a camera and a tripod. I just bought a tripod. It's a nice tripod, but it's a lot more effort than we're willing to do right now.
At the moment. This weekend is a project weekend.
It's a
chill weekend.
It's the first weekend. Well, okay, we hung out in October, but not counting that.
Well, yeah, we hung out in October, and now it's April.
Right.
Like-
Well, I was gonna say it's the first time in a year that
Just
we hung
about.
out, but like ignoring October.
Yeah. But,
Today.
do you hear that?
Oh, that good audio, that crisp audio.
That ding. Oh, right. That's not even what I was talking about. But yeah, that nice crisp
I was gonna say,
audio.
like, yeah, our listeners. Do you hear that I don't now sound like I'm being channeled through a phone and a computer into a separate recording
Right.
device? Like, we've got cool audio now.
Hopefully those days are behind us.
Yes, hopefully.
Hopefully so.
This is all courtesy of the Drew of the Andrew. He has given me
I'm the backbone.
a working mic. Well, yeah, you kind of are. Like we said, I'm just the charisma.
Well,
Like,
Wow.
you know, like the robots and iRobot. You're all the mechanical stuff, and I'm the really frightening face.
the uncanny face.
The uncanny
Yeah.
face that makes you want to trust the robots. Right. Anyway, so
Anyway.
what were you going to say? What
So,
here?
no. Do you hear that sound? That ding-a-linging in the background? That bell?
No.
No?
No.
You don't hear it?
No.
That's the alarm.
Okay.
You know what alarm it is?
No.
That's primetime movie watch alarm.
Oh, primetime movie watch alarm.
Yes. We watched the Snyder Cut
Last
yesterday.
night. Yeah.
And later on this week, we're going to watch Godzilla vs. Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do some special different episodes. It's not
Yeah,
just going to be
it's
a conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be more of like, we're going to break it down. It's going to be, you could almost categorize it as a review.
Maybe.
But like, okay, we will not pretend to be actual experts in anything, but we are borderline professional nerds, avid movie watchers, well into the lore of the comics and such. So, like, we aren't just nobodies talking about some
Right.
of this nerdy stuff. Like, we know for the most part what makes a good movie, what makes a bad movie.
Yeah.
So,
And on the like personal side of things, we're both, I mean, you growing up with comic books and having a degree in art,
yes.
me growing up with like less comic books but more movie stuff
Mm-hmm.
and a degree in physics,
Mm-hmm.
we have some
We have some
different
perspectives,
ideas there.
Yeah.
So I would say this is less a review and more a collection of our opinions, and what did and didn't work in these kind of things.
Right. So like, and so okay. Disclaimer, of course. Heavy spoilers.
Yes.
We are not a movie review thing.
Mhm.
If I ever have my own channel, that'll be movies specifically. But we're just diving right in.
Yep.
So if you haven't seen it and you want to see it, stop listening now.
Yeah, and just for that, this whole episode is going to be devoted to Snyder Cut Justice League.
Yeah.
So if
There's
you're
no skipping around, like this is it.
but
But also, like, if you like, if you've already seen it and you want to listen, cool. I can tell you right now, it's not a whole lot of praise, but
Yeah.
like, we're not hating on people who like it at all.
no,
Like,
absolutely.
if you like it and you want to like it, cool. But like, if you're open to other perspectives, give it a listen. We're not
Right.
trying to be mean. But
That's the one quote that I enjoy from Dan Abidan
Mhm.
from Ninja Sex Party, Starbomb, Game Grumps. He's somebody who can always enjoy whatever he watches.
Mhm.
And they talked about how incredible that is and how jealous other people should be about that. Because if we could just sit down and watch that movie and absolutely love every minute of it, why would we want to not?
right. But I don't
Um,
think you and I are capable of doing that anymore.
We have too much of that critic's eye
yeah.
stuck. But that being said, if you did watch it and want to have, hear our thoughts on it,
Mhm.
give it a listen. If you didn't watch it and don't plan to, because it's like, what, 4.5 hours? or
Yeah,
something?
like if you don't care about spoilers, give us a listen, because it's going to be funny. We have some funny things to say. This we think this will still be entertaining.
Yeah, and we're going to try our best to explain the situations that we're describing.
It's not just I didn't like that. Like, we have reasons. Yeah, we have reasons why.
Yeah, I think it's important to lay out the scene just in case people did not see it. So we'll do that as well.
So yeah. We'll so just to set the scene,
let's dive right in. Oh man.
For those of you who don't know, we've alluded to it here and there, but this movie is 4 hours long, and we had several instances of. So we took notes.
Yes, there's 7 parts, including the epilogue.
Yeah, there's seven parts, including the epilogue. We took notes throughout, so sometimes we had to pause and discuss. And we started at like 7:30 ish. And we did not stop until after midnight. So with the added pauses and discussions, that was about a 5-hour thing.
Yep.
And it was exhausting, honestly.
It really was. I think we originally had the idea to like at least get this like recording setup started yesterday. But it was just 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we were both dead.
And it was okay. I'm going to try. I don't want to talk over you the whole time. Like, so I have a lot to say about this movie. Okay, so how do you want to start? Like,
yeah, I will definitely mediate this. I will. Yeah, I've got the one.
You go ahead.
I've got the notes. So for our notes.
Oh, sorry. One thing. It's just we will for sure compare it here and there to the other one. So I think since that one is called Justice League, like online they call it Justice League because Joss Whedon directed it. But people on the internet are basically just calling this new one the Snyder Cut. So Justice League, if we say Justice League, that is referring to the 2017 movie. The Snyder Cut is referring to the 4-hour HBO Justice League cut. So Justice League and Snyder Cut, those are the distinguishing titles.
Right, good distinction. So, yes, I've got the notes. I was the one taking the notes through the movie.
Yes, because I was not composed enough to do it.
Right. We have 2 categories of notes. We have things we didn't like, which cover 2 pages. And we have things we do like, which is almost a half a page.
Yes. So we did keep track of stuff we thought was dope.
Yeah,
like,
which,
for sure.
To be fair,
the dope stuff was dope.
Some good stuff.
Yeah, like the stuff we liked was not just like, well, we'll give that a little markup. No, like the dope stuff was awesome.
Yeah. So I suppose first,
should we break it down into parts?
We should break it down into parts and just go right into everything. So, part 1. What's the general like plot structure of part 1, the start to end? It starts with
I don't even know how to remember how it was sorted into the
I can't remember when,
because there wasn't really anything distinguishing the parts.
Maybe that's where we should start. We should start with the overall like confusion of the structure.
Right. Okay, so overall, the whole 4 hours, it's okay. Again, for anyone who's wondering why it's 4 hours, there was some drama in the Warner Brothers room that made the Justice League movie specifically 2 hours long because all the stuff that Zack Snyder was dealing with and how they brought in another director because of his family tragedy. They no longer had any faith in the movie. They made it 2 hours so that it could be played in theaters as many times as possible. So since Snyder was given the opportunity to actually complete his movie, he made it the whole thing. Like, there's no deleted scenes. It's the whole chunk. But in doing that, there's a lot of drawn out stuff. Pointless things, like perspectives we don't really need to see. And then it's broken up into like chapters, but there's really no distinguishing elements. It's not like setting up, well, this is the Batman chapter, and this is the Wonder Woman chapter, and this is the Aquaman chapter. It's just trying to maybe organize it, but there's really no distinguishing parts.
Yeah, to some confusion, it felt like, let's see, part 4 part 5. Man, it's already getting into it. There are 6 parts and an epilogue. Part 5 is when they finally start the resurrection of Superman.
And that's like, what, halfway through?
Yeah.
So Superman does not come into it until halfway through.
Right.
And looking at comparing Snyder Cut to the Justice League movie, while there are changes, of course, it's people saying it's a completely different film. It's not really a completely different film.
No.
It's just they added more Aquaman, more Cyborg, a little more Flash, and then a lot of talking, which, whatever, fine. But it's really not that different. It is different, but not in the way people are making it sound.
Yeah. So
it's more Snydery, for sure.
Well, sure. To that point, Superman comes in at the end of part 5, I believe. Mm-hmm. It's somewhere in the later half of part 5. Which gives us 4 out of the 6 main parts of the movie, which are like sort of pre-movie. Mm-hmm. It's before the actual conflict is started, and none of it feels like every part has a different character introduction for the same character.
Yeah, exactly. Every time, because the way he films things with his dramatic angles mm-hmm. and the slow-mo, like Aquaman is introduced and then he saves a guy, but the way they frame that shot, which is like 30 minutes after he's introduced, it's like, oh, who's this? This is the first time we see him. And they do that to multiple characters.
In just about every part.
Every single time that character comes on
mm-hmm.
screen.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ridiculous.
It's just confusing. It's confusing because those introductions really are what designate the parts. And it says a lot. We analyze these movies when we watch them. We focus on the details. And yet I can't recall which parts are which.
Mm-mm.
Like...
Because
about 12 hours later.
They've got a lot of stuff that's there to be cool, but it also doesn't really serve a purpose. That part where Aquaman saves the guy from the boat.
Yeah.
He saves the guy from the boat, walks in, drinks some whiskey, and leaves. That doesn't really give us anything.
Right.
Except they filmed it,
so
and they're including all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, he then gets sucked into the ocean. He goes to Atlantis again. But him walking from that bar to the pier, because it's all in slow motion... That 15-second walk was like 4 minutes of film.
Yeah.
And that really was. That's just, it's not even necessary. But now, we're already tangenting. And starting from part one with negatives and positives.
Yes, so we'll start with the positives, because that'll be the easier list to get through.
Yeah.
Part 1 and part 2 are meshed in our notes for the good. But the Steppenwolf redesign.
Steppenwolf looks so much better.
Yes, So, the new, armor and the new Steppenwolf is, it's scaled, and it's very dynamic, and there are pieces moving around, and as he fights, there's one good part in the Amazon fight, early on in the first part, that he's riddled with arrows, and he makes his armor shink together, and the plates cut all of the arrows out of his armor.
And it's got, a luminous purple tint, the way that the light hits it, and it looks, it's so spiky and cool, almost as if it's alive. And Steppenwolf in Justice League 2017 looked gross to begin with. Mm-hmm. There was nothing appealing about him with his weird bendy metal armor, but this guy just looked awesome.
Yes.
And he's powerful. His presence is intimidating.
Yes, which...
He's a monster.
That brings me to the second thing we liked about part 1, which was not just the armor, but Steppenwolf's whole introduction, his power. It was really... Comparing it to the original Justice League, it felt like Steppenwolf was way, way, way more important, way more dangerous than...
They also... we didn't have this written down, but they gave him a little more depth. It might be kind of ridiculous, but I liked that, this massive monster. He got weepy and teary-eyed when Desaad, one of Darkseid's other goons, told him he couldn't come home yet. You could see this massive monster in his shrapnel spiky armor. He was all teary-eyed. He's oh, damn. We actually are supposed to care about this villain who... other than that, really doesn't have anything that compelling going on. But it was cool that they added that.
Which, to that's 2 more things for our part 1 things that we've liked. First, the style of the armor being liquid in the way it was, that could melt off of Steppenwolf, looked cool. It looked creepy, but good creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's... The communication between Steppenwolf and everybody on Apocalypse is through this metal slab in the middle of a nuclear silo that when he plugs the mother box into, it sort of transforms into a metal melting liquid hologram, which looked super good.
Yeah, I don't know the practicality of it, but it was really cool to watch.
It was very cool to watch.
I liked it. You kind of compared it to the Snoke hologram.
Yes,
in the latest
7.
Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's really it for part 1. So we'll go into the
negatives for part 1.
Negatives, and I would just say important discussion points, stuff that we needed to pause and talk about.
Yes.
The first one is the first scene of the movie, which was Superman being killed and him yelling out, screaming in pain and terror or whatever, which caused a 3-tiered shockwave to travel around the world.
Mm-hmm.
First off, the fact that everyone there
is not deaf,
left with their hearing, is kind of
right,
miraculous.
and the fact that like the shockwave that travels around the world didn't shatter every piece of glass in Metropolis and Gotham.
Right. And it seemed to like push newspapers around, but it didn't really seem that anybody noticed.
Right. The other thing, though, is that didn't happen in Batman vs. Superman. You'll find that a lot in any of our future discussions is lack of consistency.
Yes.
That's a big old red flag in general because, like, that's just sloppy.
It really is.
That did not happen in the last movie. He might have yelled or whatever because, yeah, he got impaled. But that the super shockwave around the world yelling, that didn't happen.
Right.
So I don't like that. But then as that shockwave travels, it's the death of the Kryptonian warrior that awakes the mother boxes. And for some reason, at this exact moment, Mara is around the mother box at that exact second. Yep. Now, you said maybe the Amazons have a constant guard on theirs, and that's why they were there. Okay, fine. What a boring job for them the last 5,000 years. Sure. But the fact that Mara, who is a princess of her own chunk of Atlantis, is there at that exact time is like, oh, you really have nothing else to be doing?
Yes. So, Superman yelling and triggering the boxes. That brings up a point that you thought of, and we both kind of discussed. So, we'll get to it later on, which is more part 2 thing, but it's something we very much enjoyed. Which was the old war, where the Atlanteans, the Amazons, and the men, gods, and a Green Lantern, all fought off the apocalyptic forces the first time, 5,000 years ago or whatever. There's a time frame in between then and the death of Superman where Earth is really weak, and nobody ever... The Darkseid didn't plan to invade.
Right. Like, they kept saying the reason the mother boxes have awoken is because Superman has died.
Right.
Superman was only around for 18 months before he died. Even if you want to count that they were somehow knew there was a young Kryptonian on the planet, he's only like 30 years old.
Right.
That's a minuscule chunk of 5,000 years where they could have been like, well, we could wake up now.
Right.
Like, why not? Like, why not before Wonder Woman was around? The gods, if they use that as an example, Ares had killed the gods off thousands of years ago. And then Wonder Woman killed off Ares in the 40s. Mm-hmm. So they clearly don't care about Wonder Woman being around because she's been around the whole time. And then Superman dies. So why wake up now?
Why then?
There's no reason for that. And I won't get too much into this. But they have a similar theory as to why Thanos decided to act when he did in the Marvel movies, but it's because Ego had died, Odin had died, Hela had died, Surtur had died. Right. And that makes more sense.
Yes, because those are
it's more like he's watching and waiting. Yeah, like these immortal things. There's no reason that the mother boxes couldn't have done this way earlier.
Yeah, even if we go like 1,000 years earlier, the gods are all dead except for Ares. Mm-hmm. So... And the Atlantis has been out for a while.
Much, yeah.
The Amazons have been on their own island. Why? Oof, that's okay.
Yeah, why? Like there's no why. There was no why given.
Right, which was our next point. The timeline is just messed up for that.
Yes. Okay. That's the thing. That just ignoring artistic and comic book points. The film itself does not illustrate well the passage of time. No. It goes from the opening, which is a flashback to Batman vs. Superman, immediately to Batman tracking down the other heroes. But it does not tell us, well, this is a week later, this is a month later. They hint towards it in other forms of dialogue, but it does not tell us how much time has passed. And it's almost like it's relying on you to have seen the other movie But that's not what they want.
Right.
You're not supposed to have seen the other movie. This is supposed to be something so separate that, you just ignore it. You pretend the other one doesn't exist.
Yes.
But this does not. This just has. It's lacking what a typical film would have had. And that's just. Why?
Yeah. I think that's especially important in the early part because we jump around so much. Because there's. The scenes in the beginning lead you to believe that Superman died, and then the next day, Batman is
looking for Aquaman on a horse with a beard.
Yeah, and the only consistent thing that it always cuts back to is the Superman memorial, which is still destroyed, still has police watching it every day,
right? Which
gives you the idea that it just happened.
Just happened.
Which there's no possible way,
no.
Because then we get into the Aquaman scene, which brings us to our next point. The going to the village that Aquaman frequents, it's said that Batman found his way there by climbing the mountain and by trekking to the village, which doesn't go with that it's only been a few weeks timeline. You can't do that. But the point we have written is Batsy goes in and has a discussion with one of the village elders about Aquaman and says he heard the rumors. It's very much the same as the first Justice League. There's somebody who
minus the jokes.
Yeah, minus the fun part. He goes in and says, "I believe there's somebody here that brings fish," and they have a super serious discussion, to where it's revealed that Aquaman is standing right there. They have a discussion. Batman decides to pay money. Everybody laughs. I don't really remember why everybody laughed, but they did. They walk out. Batman's like, "Hey, apocalypse is coming. We got to stop it. You're on my new superhero team. How's that sound?" Aquaman says no, takes his shirt off, goes out into the sea. All of the village ladies begin to sing as he's leaving.
Right.
One of them walks down to the shore, picks up his shirt, and sniffs it.
And this goes on for a while.
For 2 or 3 minutes of just
Nordic, whatever, that part of the world's singing while one lady is sniffing his sweater.
Yeah.
And I just, why?
Why? Yeah. There's no, I guess you could push off the singing, I suppose, into it's some sort of religious, they believe in a tradition, it's a god that they worship, whatever. It's some sort of, traditional, good luck kind of a thing. Maybe. Just maybe. But then why did one of the women stepped down, picked up the shirt that Mr. Aqua Guy just shed, and scoops it up, gives it a big old sniff. Big old sniff. Stops singing, and then rejoins the song.
It's just, there's a lot in this movie that you can say, okay, what was that for?
What was that for? Yes.
There's
what did that serve?
It's the exact opposite, honestly, of how sometimes Steven Spielberg makes his movies. Literally every scene in Back to the Future sets up something later.
Yes.
It tells us something about the character, about the situation, or it foreshadows something. But there's a lot in this movie that's just, this goes nowhere.
It's just nothing.
It doesn't do anything. What did that tell us about Aquaman? What did that tell us about the world?
Right.
What did that tell us about them? We don't know because we don't understand the song.
Yeah, in a different language.
It's, but anyway.
Yeah. No subtitles to it, so there's no translation.
So what's after that?
Yes. So after that we have the Lex Luthor is what I have written down here. So this is the Alfred challenging Bruce about why is he trusting Lex Luthor? Why does he believe Apocalypse is coming? Only because Lex said so. And Batman said, "For once, I'm working under faith instead of reason."
That is not a Batman thing ever. And if it is in a part of a comic I'm not aware of, that's not a default Batman. Batman has been all over the board across these 2.5 movies, if you want to count Justice League as a half movie, and it has never been any version of a consistent, established, default Batman. That is ridiculous to rely on just faith.
Yes.
Like,
which I would say it would be a fantastic thing to hear after all of his reason has failed him.
yeah.
If we were able to see that reason doesn't work, see that, the logic and stuff, it just isn't working out for him, then he says, this is my last resort, that would be fantastic. But it's opening the movie with, I'm giving up my personality for this movie to work.
Yeah, well, there's very little for Batman to be doing in this movie,
This
honestly.
is the whole movie, yeah.
His whole thing in this is recruiting the Justice League, which is the exact same thing as Justice League as it is in Snyder Cut. Batman's doing the same thing, but that is not how Batman's role is not Nick Fury in the Justice League equivalent. Very often, Batman is the one they have to convince to join.
Yeah, he's consistently the hard one to recruit.
And it's always a really cool, dramatic, awesome, badass Batman moment in animated movies and cartoons when he quits. Because he doesn't need them. He's doing his own thing.
Right.
But for Batman to be going around recruiting people, it just doesn't...
It doesn't feel right.
No, it doesn't. And it doesn't make any sense. And he's just become the bankrolling character at this point. And he honestly doesn't bankroll a whole lot of anything at all.
No. Yeah, everybody had their suits and things beforehand, so there wasn't anything there.
Right. I think they just want to make him relevant, because I think it would have made a lot more sense if Wonder Woman, the one who's aware of the story of all the United Heroes, and the one who is a leader, she's the one.
And the one with the real knowledge of the Mother Box.
Oh, also, we will go back to, are we even to Wonder Woman's intro yet? Because we have things to say about that.
No, we have, that's actually the next thing, Wonder Woman's fight.
Yeah. So, okay, first of all, it's almost identical to Justice League.
It's just a little darker, a little more
darker. Mean. But in Justice League, there were some weird upskirt shots that I assumed were added because they no longer had the same kind of care or, I don't know, class that Patty Jenkins had for Wonder Woman. But no, that's just what the movie was going to be. But I don't know if you noticed this. So this opening scene, these weird domestic terrorists of some sort, they're just going to blow up a bank conveniently when there's kids visiting or something. Whatever. They have their own agenda. They aren't a part of this at all. But we had a very long intro to them. But anyway, they all get out of two white vans right in front of a guard. And the guy holding the bomb walks out of the van, slaps the side of the van, and all the guys with the guns get out with him. He walks past the guard, who doesn't give him a single thought, so that this guard goes after the guys with the guns, and then the guy with the suitcase bomb turns around and shoots him. How did you not suspect the guy who got out of the van with them?
Right. Like the street was busy, but you would notice two windowless vans rolling up and who got out of them.
I just thought that didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But ignoring that, so we get a very long intro to this guy, and every shot is of the suitcase, and it makes you wonder, is this suitcase important? Do you think the suitcase is important? I don't really know. We've been looking at the suitcase for now 3 minutes. I think maybe the suitcase is important. But anyway, Wonder Woman comes in, and she's fast and awesome and badass, and my god, she wiped the floor with these guys.
It was cool.
There's brains dripping off the wall, and all this. It's great. But she is, hold on to this, she is very fast.
Yeah,
she's
incredibly.
Stupid fast, which is totally fine. She's like a god. But
yeah, well, before that, they keep the scene from the original, of course. That Wonder Woman goes and uses her gauntlets to block every bullet out of a gun. That's the kind of speed we're talking about.
Yeah,
an automatic gun.
She's faster than bullets.
Yes.
And then she saves everyone. She throws the bomb up into the air. People are fine. She comes back, but the one guy, the lead guy, is still alive.
Yep.
And he starts shooting, and she's blocking it or whatever, and then he's mid-reload, and instead of using our faster-than-bullet speed to just, I don't know, cripple him,
disarm
grab him, splatter his brains on the wall, she smashes her gauntlets together and blows out the side of the building, sprinkling all the policemen on the ground with rubble.
And the blood of that guy.
Right.
Whose hat, floats through
It wasn't even remotely close to, well, the situation called for it. There's nothing else she could do. She had to do it. No. It's just nonsensical flashiness.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense any way you slice it. We're trying to save this building from a bomb. So what do? Blow up half this building
right.
with my powers I don't need.
After jumping through the roof.
Right.
After tearing the roof apart, we're going to blow up the structure as well.
You've taken down 7 dudes by yourself, and now this one dude who's the old guy who does not have anything going for him, mid-reload, you had to use your magic superpowers to blow out a wall and sprinkle rubble onto the policeman below.
It's very much like, yes, artistically, cinematically, it's a way to show the power before it's actually needed. But not in that situation. It's not called for there, which just makes it feel wrong and dumb.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And she didn't do that in the other one. And, I'm not really upset about that because it made more sense.
It's not. It's dumb.
But that's Wonder Woman's intro. So what do we have next?
Yes, next is, I have written down the first box stealing scene, which we had some points about.
I have mixed opinions on all of it.
I think overall it was fine.
It was cooler than the other one because he's so in Justice League there's the chase scene with the Amazons trying to protect the first mother box that Steppenwolf comes to get, and there's more action. There's cooler sequences. That's where we get our first real look at his suit.
Yep,
it's cool.
Yep,
but there's a lot of slow-mo.
Well, that's where I want to bring my thoughts into this. One thing we talked about later on was the fact that he comes in riding a boom tube.
Right.
Which we're both fairly certain you can't open
boom tubes without a mother box.
Right.
And that gets into more just ignoring the comic books. If we are wrong about that, I will double check, of course, and if this is up and someone knows better and corrects it, fine.
Yeah.
But boom tubes are opened by mother boxes. If there are other things that can do that, fine. But he clearly doesn't have one if it is just mother boxes. So, and the other thing, this is, I guess you could take this more of a personal preference, but it's also like, so the boom tubes in both these movies open in a large cylindrical wormhole
from the
sky with lightning and thunderclouds around this time around. Very much Avengers Bifrost-esque. But that's not how they open in the comics or in the animated movies. It's more like Doctor Strange's portals, which is totally fine. That's what they do. And we see that example used at the end of the movie. But if you're making a movie, so okay, it doesn't matter, haters, good guys, whatever. The Justice League and the Avengers are going to be compared no matter what.
Of course.
Because they're different sides of the same coin. But then why would you do anything that even remotely resembles your competing franchise when it doesn't look like that in the first place?
Right.
Like, there's no point to make it act like that.
It just increases the confusion, which decreases the likeness of one. Everyone's going to see that, and instead of thinking, oh, that's really cool, they're going to think, oh, that looks like Marvel.
Yeah. Which
is not a good thing for
and it's a cylindrical sky beam tube made up of like kind of techie looking hexagons. It's like they took the jump points and the space travel from Marvel movies and the Bifrost and combined it. Yeah. And that's not how it looks like. DC already has their existing teleportation visual format. Yeah. They didn't have to change it.
That's really the concerning thing, because if all of DC was just a collection of books, then maybe. Because you would compare it to the Bifrost because it's a similar idea, it's teleportation. But being comics, there's literally pictures you can look at.
You already have it.
To compare it to, but whatever. So with that scene, one of the issues we drew was the Queen.
She was very slow.
She stood and watched for 2.5 minutes. Which in slow-mo, of course.
Some of that wasn't in slow-mo, though.
Some of it wasn't.
She had that, it's a cliche in movies, but it was really bad in this moment where they're mid-fight and she just stops to talk to a lady.
Yep.
And talks for a while. And no one's shooting at her now. And then as soon as she gets up to move, as soon as she moves, there was a shot right where she was standing. That's
stopping, turning around, watching, which they kind of I don't want to say remedied, but they made the excuse visually that Steppenwolf was being held down by the other Amazons.
Right. They were definitely trying.
But it just doesn't make sense. this is the Queen understands, absolutely understands that this box is one of the most important things to get out of here and not let it be stolen. And she just stood there and held it and waited for Steppenwolf to chase her, which was stupid. But she got out. They sunk the
whole fortress, which they didn't do in Justice League, which both cool and also
cool moment.
That's a lot of warriors you just
also
killed.
Yeah, killed 300
and
people.
this guy can already teleport, so what did that really do for you?
Yeah. There was a lot of, in the chase scene, there was a lot of fighting and death and some super cool.
He was throwing horses around. Like it was intense, it was brutal, and it was definitely cooler than the Justice League version.
Agreed.
Like this was dope. Like I will give Snyder this. He is good at action sequences.
Yeah.
They look good, they're awesome. They just don't always make sense.
Yeah. But of course eventually Steppenwolf gets the box,
right,
teleports away.
And then they're like, well, we gotta tell the rest of the world what this means. We gotta tell man. We gotta light that arrow and shoot it to the invasion fortress temple thing. And one Amazon's like, but like that hasn't burned in 5,000 years. Man won't know what it is. And the Queen's like, well, she will. No, like, yeah, of course, Diana will know what that means. But that occurs during the day.
Yes, so they have that discussion during the day.
Yes,
that we need to urgently warn everybody we can.
Right, and then we have an arrow lighting ceremony
after a half an hour of other movie.
Right,
which is put in the middle.
But at this point, it's nighttime on Themyscira. Mm-hmm. They've got drums.
Robes.
They're walking.
Different clothes on.
They took a corner very dramatically, and then they had to say like a little prayer before they lit the arrow and shot it. And we were
shot
like
it a mile away.
Like, I mean, my God, you could have invaded everything else by now. It's like, oh, we got a notification from the Amazons that there's an invasion. Yeah, we know. They've taken out half the world now because you spent
6 hours.
6 hours. Like, somebody could have ran, stuck that thing in a torch, and shot it. But no, we had to have a whole ceremony.
Right.
Which just...
And...
that's nonsensical.
The next point is... it's very well established that Diana's the only one who's going to know what it means.
Right.
And the only reason she finds out about it is because she sees it on the morning news the next day. Which adds another 6-8 hours of time where this apocalyptic event is happening that the world needs to be warned about, and it couldn't.
Like, you could have shot that right away. You could almost... okay, look, I'm just now thinking of this. Mm-hmm. You could almost make the argument they waited till nighttime so the fire stood out against the darkness. Mm-hmm. But even so, once the sun was down, we don't have to have the ceremony.
Right.
Like, we don't need to spend all this time on this. Right. It just doesn't make sense if there's urgency.
Yeah. It's a total, 14-hour trip that could have been, a phone call.
Yeah.
Or a text, or even, fucking a bat signal. Just shoot it up in the air, and hopefully it's a cloudy night and Diana sees it.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the same odds of her noticing. The only reason she saw it was because when she was...
it's on the news.
Yeah, it was on the news when she was working, and that channel just happened to be on.
Yeah.
Imagine if that TV was off.
Imagine if she was just not around a screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like...
yeah. Yeah,
anyway.
So... the other things here are just minor notes from part 1.
Okay.
First off, we have Slo-mo.
There's a lot of slow-mo. I know it's a Snyder thing, but somebody said on the internet, this 4 hours, 24 minutes of this was in slow-mo.
Which is 10% of the movie.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's too much.
They completely avoid saying Superman's name in the first 2 parts.
Which is just weird.
They gave it the Voldemort treatment, where it's
he would know. Flash was the first one to say it.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was kind of weird to hear it, almost.
Right.
And then everyone just started saying it.
Yeah. And then I also have here that during the...
is this what I think it is?
Yeah, probably. During the Amazon fight, Steppenwolf comes in and he says, you Amazons...
I will bathe in your fear, or something like...
And the Queen said, oh... What of our fear, ladies?
And they all say flawlessly
together, we have no fear, and then continue to not attack. They stand still.
It's oh, okay, we rehearsed this then, did we?
And that's something too that we didn't talk about with that early Amazon fight. as soon as the box starts moving, everybody draws their weapons, draws their bows. Then Steppenwolf appears. They get knocked off their feet for a second, and then they get back up, draw their stuff, and then he takes the box. And they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna shoot him."
Yeah, but like the humans and Wonder Woman show up to the beach, and these ladies don't hesitate to wipe them all out. And why would you not? Like, there is hesitation before they start just obliterating him. And clearly they've proven that it wouldn't have done anything anyway. But that doesn't mean they take away from the fact that, like, as soon as they were back on their feet, there should have been pelting of arrows.
Yeah, and instead of waiting for the order. Like, sure, the queen's there. The order is protect this thing.
Before Steppenwolf lands and causes the shockwave that wipes them all out, the boom tube opens and parademons start flying out of it. And
nobody does a thing.
You think these are friendlies? Like, you know what this is. Why would you not be taking those things out? Are you waiting for an order?
They explicitly know what the parademons are.
Right. And you've all fought them before.
Yeah, they're just watching these fly in like, is this like a drill? Do we actually do this? This is a good point to mention. Maybe we include this in the podcast. Maybe we edit it out.
Yeah.
We're 46 minutes into our recording.
Give or take 10.
Give or take 10.
But still.
This is going to be a long one. So, yes, we just had an admin discussion. We are this far into the podcast. We started recording earlier and have a different set. We didn't actually start a timer for the actual recording time plus editing and stuff. But we realized that we're probably,
it's probably gonna be a two-parter.
This podcast is going to have to be separated into two parts to get all of our ideas out.
So yeah, but we'll post both of them back to back.
Yes.
So if you're listening to this now,
right.
Well, there'll be another video.
It'll still be
we'll link it, but this way, if you want to listen to an hour and then stop, you can. If you want to listen to the next hour, you can.
Just to keep it, we'll probably separate them. We'll do our standard outros and stuff for both of them. Just we don't want to break that hour to hour and a half time block that we
We're trying to be consistent these early days.
Yeah. That being said, it's been a half an hour of discussion, and we're on one of the 6 parts.
Yeah.
So. And I don't plan to speed through any of this.
I'm not either.
So
I'm having fun.
This will be a deep dive. But anyway, that's our part 1 notes, good and bad.
Yep. Part 2.
On to part 2. The good. The old battle with man, Atlantis, Amazons, the gods, the Green Lanterns.
Yeah.
Seeing a Green Lantern in this movie was fantastic.
It was cool, and it was the comic accurate very first Earth Green Lantern, which was
fantastic.
That was fun. Cool attention to detail there.
He died in the fight which was super cool because we saw Darkseid almost get a hold of the ring.
Oh yeah, he cut off his hand too, which was a cool way to do it.
Yeah.
In Justice League, somebody impales him and he just dies. But for Darkseid to be aware of it enough to cut off his hand, that was. Yeah. Nice.
And then we see Darkseid get his ass handed to him.
Oh, yeah.
Which was super cool. By...
Zeus. Or Ares.
By Ares.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ares was the one that dug the axe into the shoulder.
Yes. That was good stuff.
Super cool. And that's the good stuff we had for part 2.
Yeah. Those fights, though, did address something that I liked, which I have not been a huge fan of how it's been kind of implied that Superman is more powerful than Shazam, who's supposed to have the powers of the gods. But then to see the gods in this clearly being absolute powerhouses and taking all this stuff out by themselves, I like that.
Yes. Later on in the film, we see Superman struggle to separate the mother boxes with the help of Cyborg.
And Zeus just does it.
He snapped his fingers and it's done.
He just does it. It's right on, man.
Yeah, it's super good to see.
Right on. It was a really cool sequence.
The part 2, the negatives and talking points. Is it Star Labs that Silas works for?
Yes.
So the Star Labs department, that building was invaded.
This is really getting into the ones that are laughable.
Yes, it's super dumb.
I'm a rant about that drawing again.
That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
The Parademon breaks in and steals, or doesn't steal the mother box.
He's looking for the mother box because they could smell where it's been, but not where it is.
Right. Which we'll get into later. I think that's in part 3 or 4.
Is it? Okay, cool.
Yeah, but maybe 5. I don't remember. 4. Anyway, the parademon gets there, which is this insectoid dragonfly
Massive
wing
bug guy. He's got his wings buzz when he uses them.
with a flat head of
Yeah.
like metal plate.
Big round red eyes.
Yeah. And
Curved legs. Like
incredibly
And-
insect and alien looking.
yeah. And our janitor guy got
Yeah.
a very clear look at it.
Very clear in the light.
Profile.
Mm-hmm.
It turns around and looks right at him.
Yeah. Which he then gets away, right? And
I guess he
reports this.
leaves, and then all these people. He was taken.
Mhm.
Somebody else saw the thing, but would have had to have seen the bug wings.
Yep.
And then so we have people who are witnesses to this event.
Yeah.
Because there are no security cameras.
Yeah, for some reason, in the DoD protected facility that houses Superman's spaceship, there is no security camera that could have caught this thing.
Right. There are witnesses that are now talking to a description artist guy.
Sketch artist.
Sketch artist.
For the police.
And the drawing...
It's just Batman.
It's just Batman.
It's the pointy ears.
Pointy ears
with the cloak.
A cape. Like, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
It does not. That's not what it looked like.
Not even
that's
a
not
little
what
bit.
you would have described. Like, now in Justice League, we basically have the same moment where eventually this drawing is taken and shown to Jim Gordon, and the cop showing him is like, "Who do you think this looks like?" It's like, "Oh, come on! You think he fights crime for 20 years and then starts abducting people?" But I'll talk to him. But the drawing in Justice League looks more like what you'd think Mothman looked like. There was some gray area because the wings were like out and they were like spiky and they were weird, and it looked like a big black cloaked entity almost.
Right.
But this drawing we have in the Snyder Cut is just Batman. It's not even remotely close to what the Parademon looked like. It's not what would have been described.
Right. It's very, very, very much the silhouette of Batman you see coming down from the moonlight with his cloak out.
Yeah, it was a triangular formation too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you see this thing, which again, bug wings, massive ass dragonfly bug wings that buzz when they use them. If you see it flying around, okay, maybe you missed the wings. There's no legs in the drawing.
Yep.
How do you see this massive 7-foot bug thing and not be like, it had like grasshopper legs?
And how do you see ears where there are none, a cloak where there isn't one? There's not even any like fabric that flows or anything like that.
Even if you just see a silhouette, like no real profile, like just the thing moving around or flying, it doesn't look like Batman.
Not even a little bit. But that brings us to the second point. Is this drawing clearly does look like Batman. And everyone in the lab is looking at this drawing and they're like, whoa. Well, I have no idea what that thing is. And it's like nobody, not even the police or the what was the acronym? The ORI or something. Whatever organization was there. Everyone said, we have absolutely no idea what this thing is. Even though it's a clear depiction of Batman, and everyone should be familiar with Batman in Gotham. Right. They all are in
They're
Gotham.
in Metropolis. It's been around for 20 years. Like, it's right next to it. Like, everyone knows who Batman is.
Right.
So,
and they see this Batman picture like, wow, we really have no leads to go on because, the only person the only two people, or I guess three people that recognize it as Batman are Silas. And he just goes home and talks to Victor about it. And
then the other cop and Jim.
Yeah, Jim and the other cop. Everyone else is like, wow, that's scary.
It's weird.
And right.
What could that be? Why did you add ears?
So now we get into probably the one, in my notes here, I have 2 words, and this is probably going to be our longest discussion.
Yeah?
Yes. Because the words I have here are Cyborg's lines.
Yeah.
So you were saying that it's very much documented that Zack Snyder thought Cyborg throughout this movie.
He calls Cyborg the heart of his film.
Right.
And he's not.
The only emotion he ever displays is anger.
Or grief.
Anger, grief, or
but that's
default.
And that's not Cyborg. Cyborg is definitely a frustrated, angry character when he first transforms. That's all the time.
Sure.
But like that is all we get. And there are lines, I honestly truly thought, because of the way people were talking about this movie, that the Snyder Cut was easily better than Justice League in every way.
Mm-hmm.
But there are lines, Cyborg's dialogue in Justice League, I think, is so much more compelling
right.
than in this movie. And so, for example, in Justice League, Cyborg's father comes back and he's telling him, you still have a life, you have to get out there, you need to go do your thing, like you don't need to be afraid or whatever. And Cyborg he says something, and he says, you don't want me to go out just yet because you don't want people to see the monster. And Silas says, Victor, you're not a monster. And Cyborg turns around kind of dramatically and says, it's funny that you thought I meant me. He's like, ooh,
right.
Damn. So like you got
impactful.
you don't feel like it's like that's damn.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good dig.
Yeah.
Because he didn't ask for this.
Right.
But then in the Snyder Cut, Silas says, I don't know, the lab was attacked by some sort of monster. And Victor says, you know all about monsters, don't you? Especially how to make them. And he turns around, we see his metal face. Like, that doesn't nearly have
That's
as
not
much...
even close to enough.
No, that does not have the same kind of impact
right.
that the other one did. And then there's more lines in Justice League where it's talking about Victor. Victor's like talking about how he's torn, and he says at one point, I didn't bring this up last night, but he says, the world is terrified of the next alien invasion. Now I need to be worried if it's me. Because he can feel the alien language in his head. Like, we don't get any of that. We
don't
none
touch
of that.
the alien aspect of Victor's life at all. It's all just techie. It's just the mother box transformed him, not using alien tech, but using his own tech.
Right.
And that's it. There's no.
And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to the first time he talks to Wonder Woman, because going off of his lines again, in the Snyder Cut, she says, "You have gifts now." And I don't remember exactly what he says, but it's nothing all that interesting. But in Justice League, she says, you have gifts now. And he turns around and he just holds his hands up. And he's like, if these are gifts, then why am I the one paying for them? Mm-hmm. And I find that very compelling. That's beautiful. Like,
so much
better. You
can
can feel the pain in him, but he's also still kind of like a regular guy.
Yeah, I believe.
He's like, look at me. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, it's very RoboCop. And a more of an aware, it's almost like X-Men mutant kind of stuff. Like, gifts? What do you mean gifts? Like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And in Snyder Cut as well, just visually, he's all techie and advanced and stuff, but he's like, he like walks like he's broken. Like he's half hunched over. He's got his arms out like a monster. It's just, it doesn't make any sense.
I believe the line was something along the lines of, Wonder Woman says, you have gifts, Victor. And he says, you call this a gift. And that's it.
No, I love the other line. Like, if these are gifts, why am I the one paying for them?
Yeah.
That's so much more powerful.
Yeah.
And so, okay, go on before I go into how he hacks into things.
Yes, that's part 4.
Yeah.
Or part 3. The next thing is Wonder Woman finally makes her way to towards the mascara to the site in which an ancient ruin has been burnt.
Oh, well, that's not on Themyscira.
Yeah, makes her way down that direction is what I was saying.
Oh, down into the ruins of whatever ruins,
yeah. I was just saying, heading south to
right.
get to the, like, a mile and a half away where the ruins were lit. Where there are clear police barricades put up. It's a historical site that has been practically, well, not really destroyed, but it's
it's on fire.
It's on fire.
It was on fire.
There's a big, like, press event about this. And she's able to walk past the police barricades and pick up this relic, this arrow, without being questioned, without anybody else being there, after barricades have clearly been established.
And it's been going on now for about a day. It wasn't on fire anymore. Mm-hmm. I feel like someone would have already taken it.
Absolutely.
Someone would be there. You could have made the point that with her museum job, that she's the one, She's the one they sent to go take care of it. She's like, oh yeah, I'm here to document and like looking at this is my specialty. There's old art things, there's these relics.
Yeah.
None of that. We just got her sneaking around somehow.
Yep. She sneaks around, she picks up the arrow, then finds just a bucket of gasoline and makes a torch out of something that she finds, some scrap. And then
Nicolas Cage style treasure hunt.
Right. Which, all things removed, that ruin, like her exploring the ruins and seeing that was really cool.
Yeah.
She puts the arrow in like a magnetic slot that lifts the door up.
And
That's
she
super cool.
sees like documented artwork of the first fight with Darkseid.
Yeah,
cool.
Which is when we see the cool fight scene that we both enjoyed.
She goes and tells Batman about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Cool.
But the fact that she's allowed to not only walk onto this like police scene, but also around some protected historical ruins without so much as a badge or anything like that.
There'd be a lot of news coverage on that because we already saw there was. That's how she saw it, and no one sees this lady who is not an unnoticeable person.
No, wearing an all white
jump,
not a dress coat thing.
Dress coat, like the cool French goddess look.
Yeah,
she just goes up and takes it
without.
There's so many other ways you could have done that to make sense, but there's so much emphasis on what makes this cool dramatic shot of Wonder Woman walking towards the air to pick it up. There's no thought put into, well, why don't we take 10 minutes to think about why she'd be there, how it would make sense that she's there.
A super simple change that would not only explain it, but would make it feel much more rooted in the comic books is if she was in her Wonder Woman suit.
Yeah, if it was her, because the world knows about her.
The world knows about her. They know that, like, this is kind of like...
her area.
Her domain. And
no one would have been like, oh, sorry, Wonder Woman, you can't be here. It's like, oh, please.
Yes, in every animated movie we see, there's always the scene with Wonder Woman going to a police site and pushing through the police like, hey, I got it. Like, don't worry about it. I'm here. Yeah. That would have been so much more connected to the actual universe.
Or, on top of that, going off of that, you know what also might have just fixed it? A badge.
Absolutely.
A museum or some sort of, like, just an official tag just on the collar. Just right there.
3-second, like, little clip, or stretch it out to, like, a 10-minute scene with the slow-mo included of her walking up to a police officer and just having a face-to-face conversation. Don't even record the dialogue. Just have it like
a nod.
Like a nod.
And a walk away.
Yeah. It sort of establishes that idea of, yes, I'm the historian on site.
Right.
I'm going to be taking care of this.
And see, a lot of people are gonna say, well, this doesn't matter. Who cares? This doesn't really affect the film. But, like, it just shows this kind of stuff is consistent in a lot of Snyder superhero movies. I totally acknowledge how artistic and good he is, and he's great at action. Watchmen was fantastic. It was perfectly suited to his style. But there's no thought put into a lot of these little simple things. Because it's considered like the way they go about it is like they just don't think like they're important. Yeah. But it's the devil's in the details, man. Like they say in Sherlock Holmes, the little details are by far the most important. Yes. This takes minimal effort. Yeah. And you can't even do that.
The real tragedy of it all is the fact that just for this one point, you and I have explained 3 different options that would have taken either a costume change, 3 more seconds of film, or even, I hate to say it, but even CGing on a badge.
Yeah. And I do this with Marvel movies a lot because they leave gray area whenever there's a plot hole. I try to find a way to fix it. But like you could say, well, you two dickheads. Maybe she did have that moment where she nodded at a cop or something. Maybe she is the historian on site. They took time to film her sneaking around. Yeah. She's hiding from the cops. Like, they took the time to do that. Right. Why does that make more sense than this literal goddess just showing up in her god outfit to grab this arrow that, again, probably would have been taken away by now? Yeah. Like, there's just no thought put into any of it so that we have a cool shot of her walking into this temple and picking it up. Yeah. Because somehow that is more important than the world feeling just a smidgen real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So next point I wrote Slo-mo again because there's just Slo-mo in that sequence specifically. Yeah. Her walking around warrants a good like three more minutes of Slo-mo.
Have we not gotten to, or have we skipped the lowest point?
That's not even here yet, man.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She shows up once in
the opening.
In the opening, once in part 2.
We haven't gotten to that was my point, was that we are now about almost... We're like an hour and a half in-ish. Yeah. And Lois has shown up twice.
For a total of like a minute and a half.
Yeah. Like, she's done nothing. Yeah. They just keep reminding us that she's here. We get her once every hour. Mm-hmm. and it was weird.
Yeah. So next is something that we really only caught on to at this point is when it really started to stand out, which we talk about more and more as it goes on. The music is campy rock and roll.
It's weird.
And it doesn't
It's
fit.
jarring.
Yeah.
It's like music. So, okay. It's a personal preference for me that I typically like movie scores in general.
Mm-hmm.
No lyrics and such.
Sure.
We have a friend of ours who's also very much into movies, but she's also a little more versed in music. Someday we'll have her on here.
Absolutely.
I'm sure. We don't have her right now. But the music in this was just jarring. It was, like you said, campy kind of rock and roll. It's definitely, I guess, within Snyder's realm. He does that a lot with Watchmen. But Watchmen got like an award or something for the music. It was handled beautifully. And then music with lyrics, classic songs put in movies, it works sometimes. Like with Iron Man's AC/DC or Thor's, whatever the song was in Ragnarok.
Yeah, Immigrant Song from...
Yes, like that worked.
I think an incredible
work.
example is Umbrella Academy.
Okay.
They use, I think the music is incredible. They use songs with lyrics and wrap their entire, like, they play the entire song out and model the show to feel like almost a music video for that song in that moment.
Cool.
There's a part where number 5 fights a bunch of department agents in a restaurant to the song Constantinople, or I think that's what it's called. The song has nothing to do with the fight scene. But hearing the words, and there's nothing else going on, makes it super interesting, visually incredible, and audibly unique. Mm-hmm. Which this kind of tried to at some points,
but it also just didn't.
Stepped on it.
They'd start a song, and then it would just cut off immediately because of whatever it needed to continue. And there was no consistency in when it was. It's not like Wonder Woman did have a consistent theme where a bunch of ladies were clearly doing like voice work in the background. Every time she did something, when she got really revved up, it was her classic theme from BVS. Yeah. But there's like weird rock and roll stuff for Aquaman, weird rock and roll stuff for Batman, weird rock and roll stuff for Flash, and then a weird, more emotional song of some sort for his first intro. And then they just cut it off immediately once he stopped using his powers. It's just, I did not think that at all helped the film. It doesn't quite hinder the film, but it is jarring.
The only thing I would say that it hinders is the fight scenes. There's some times where you're really taken out because it's just screeching guitar. Yeah. And that's really it. There's no other sound that comes through, just screeching guitar. Okay.
I can't really think of anyone who had like a theme. And in Justice League, when they bring Superman back for the first time during the fight, the fight music, the theme, they snuck in the classic Superman movie theme, but it was a little more dramatic. And like that was really dope. That was cool.
Yeah.
None of that.
Nothing.
None of that.
Next we get into Aquaman going back to Atlantis.
Yeah.
My complaint always stands with super fast swimming. I don't like it. I think it looks weird, and it definitely looked weird in this film.
It looked better in Aquaman.
Yeah, it really did.
Sure.
And
it looks, it just,
it looked dumb.
And why this isn't all of Atlantis, fine, fair enough, but like, why is all of this just ruins?
It's a ruined city.
And it's gross. Yeah. And the answer is Snyder just wants to make his vision. So like, technically this film would have come out before Aquaman. Technically.
Right.
Of course. So fine. But then this movie where they spent $70 million to finish it and add scenes and redo things and whatnot came out after Aquaman. Mm-hmm. And we saw when another director was given something to do, they did something cool with it.
Yep.
But Atlantis is like the underwater Wakanda. Loaded up and beautiful and colorful and crazy and fun. But what we see in this movie is just gross.
It's crumbled ruins.
And even if you make the argument that, well, this part is still crumbled ruins because this is where the mother box is, why wouldn't you move the mother box to somewhere more secure in the main city?
Or build around the mother box because it's important enough
and why
to
is Mara here all the time?
Yeah, why is she...
She is a princess of her own chunk of Atlantis, and she's always here. Mm-hmm. it's just nothing about Atlantis or the parts of Atlantis we see are appealing.
Yeah.
And they're all in the same kind of armor, which is just, it's not.
It just feels off. That's the general feeling with everything. Honestly, everything Aquaman just feels off.
Because honestly, I don't remember the guy's name who directed Aquaman, but he did so well in giving distinctions to the different chunks of it, of like the different areas and kingdoms of Atlantis. The armor looks beautiful. It looks comic accurate.
Yep.
It's colorful and fun. The city is built on old generations because the lower you go, the older it gets. Like, they made the gold and the green cool, but it's still scaly.
Yep.
Like, it's all fantastic. And in this, it's just, how can we make Atlantis dark and spiky and gray and unappealing? And it's just, it's not fun. And it's been talked about a little bit on the internet, and I totally stand by this. The reason people love the Snyder Cut so much is that we have something worse to compare it to. But I'm doing that with Atlantis right now. We have a much better Atlantis to compare it to. There's nothing about this version that we've seen that is better than what the other director gave us.
Right. Correct. The next thing with Atlantis is Aquaman makes it back, and he's checking out the statue of the king on the throne.
King Atlan.
Yeah. And he turns around, and that
Vulcan. Willem Dafoe's character.
There we go. Is standing there with his trident and his armor ready, like he expected him to come.
Well, he said he'd been there a couple of times, but it's still.
But why would he just bring that stuff with him? Is what I was confused about.
Because we have to. They half-assed a reason as to why he'd have all his stuff. But
Yeah.
I want to go back and double check.
He left without it.
Right.
Which means he had to go back and find Willem Dafoe.
After fighting with Mara, when Mara does one of our positives.
Yes, that's in the next part, which we're super close to.
Okay. He must have gone back and grabbed it, but still,
it's just.
I did see somewhere that despite this being better than the Justice League movie, the charismatic greatness that we have come to expect from Gal Gadot, whatever, and Jason Momoa is not in this movie.
No.
Wonder Woman and Aquaman don't do anything.
They really feel dry.
Yeah, they're very dry.
Yeah.
And we get more Aquaman, but do we?
Right.
Do we really?
There's more screen time, but it's kind of the same effect.
One of the funniest scenes I thought they did with Aquaman in Justice League was he accidentally sits on the lasso of truth. And I thought, okay, this is hilarious. This is something that probably would happen at some point.
Yep.
It's very comic booky, and he handled it really well. He's like, I don't want to die. I got shit I want to do, and I'm scared, and this is horrible. Like, you're nuts. You're hot, though. Like, and everyone's like, this is stupid. Like, are you kidding me? That's hilarious. And they cut that, so that was something that Whedon added. We don't get any of that.
Yeah, that's that.
Aquaman's not given anything to do except be scary and mean and continuously shed shirts and then somehow have them later.
Right. That's a good point to sort of break off and discuss. Is that anything related to the actual comic book, Snyder had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
It seems like all of the stuff, just to get this out of the way now, before we get into part 3, 4, 5, and 6, is that the Booyah line is ripped, which means Joss added it.
So yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, people who are into Cyborg, probably, especially our generation,
absolutely,
you were exposed to Cyborg in the Teen Titans Cartoon Network anime shows. It's essentially an anime show, but Cyborg's thing is Booyah.
Yep.
Like Velma's thing is Jinkies, Cyborg's is Booyah. And in Justice League, we get one Booyah. And it was like, ooh,
yeah, it was just a nice
that's
little...
my Cyborg.
Right.
Hell yeah. And that was not in this movie, which means that was added. That was Joss Whedon, all Joss Whedon stuff aside, acknowledging. But in directing that movie, that was him adding something that is cool and specific to Cyborg that was not in the Snyder Cut.
Right.
That, like... And Honest Trailers pointed this out, which was funny. He's like, the difference between the directing styles is very clear. Cyborg's like, fuck the world. And Whedon Cyborg's like, booyah.
Right.
Like, right on.
Right. Which, the point stands that any comic, it very much feels like in this 4.5 hour trek that we go down, there is no reference to the actual stories that it's based on. It's very much Snyder's own vision, which I suppose is fine, except that they're trying to tie it into a universe that already exists.
Yeah, it's borderline disrespectful.
Very much so.
In a way. Well, but I acknowledge, again, the horrible stuff that Snyder's family went through, and I am happy that he got to complete his vision, because Warner Brothers constantly tried to sabotage it. So, of course, I would have preferred that we got this version in the first place, and we wouldn't have to be here discussing the two versions.
Right.
I don't have anything against Snyder personally,
no,
but he has a vision, he has his own goals, and it is not for the benefit of the DC Comics being brought to life definitively, like Marvel has done. It is his version. Like, whoever did, I don't know who directed the Joker. Whoever directed the Joker, that is a one-off.
Yep.
That is cool. It stands alone. It's its own thing. It doesn't have to intermingle with anything. But Ryan Coogler didn't come along and direct Black Panther and completely disregard everything else that had already been established. Like, the MCU is not the Jon Favreau universe. It's not the Russo brothers universe. It's people working together. And just looking at the way... So Wonder Woman did come out before this Justice League would have come out.
Right.
Snyder's Justice League. There is clear, obvious disregard for the stuff that Patty Jenkins did.
Absolutely.
And it's just... And then, again, I should have looked it up, but the guy who directed Aquaman, he doesn't have to address or reference anything if he didn't want to. But he does reference that Aquaman fought Steppenwolf. They name drop him. So there's still acknowledgement to the other films. Snyder, like... So, okay.
James Wan.
James Wan is the guy who directed Aquaman.
Yes.
But anyway, again, this version of Justice League Snyder Cut, this is what was supposed to come out first. And this would have been after Suicide Squad. The end of this movie, we see the Joker. Zack Snyder's version of the Joker is clearly not the Joker from Suicide Squad. Different look, different performance, all of it. That is completely disregarding something that another director did, because it doesn't go with his vision. And I just find that just kind of... It's borderline rude.
Yeah.
Like, but again, it goes back to Warner Brothers gave Snyder all this power and basically made it like he was going to direct all... It was going to be all of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then they took it all away.
So
it always goes back to it's Warner Brothers' fault.
Right.
But it's like Snyder is also a victim in this. But it's just, come on. Like, that's just kind of mean.
Yeah.
To do that. It'd be like someone coming in, 5 films in and just redoing everything. It's almost like with Harry Potter 2 and 3, there's a vast difference in change and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But they took enough, like Dumbledore had died, so they were like, okay, we're going to change anything because we have to change Dumbledore. If we're going to change anything, we're going to change it now. And then everything that was changed was maintained throughout the rest of the movies. But it's not like someone came in every single time and just changed it, because that's just rude.
Yeah. Which brings us to our last point of part 2.
Uh-huh.
After the fight, the mother boxes were spread around the world. 1 to Atlantis, 1 to the Amazons, and 1 to Man. And Man buried it in a hole.
Not even 6 feet.
Not even 6 feet. And this is the last one that they're able to find.
Yeah. They didn't put it in a castle or a tower or anything like that. And Atlantis wasn't underwater yet.
Right.
Atlantis put it up on a pedestal in one of their towers.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they sank, whatever. But Man just buried it.
Shove it in a hole.
Like, they Jumanji'd it. They took it out to the woods and buried it.
Yeah, and we'll get to the complications of this box being the last one found when we get to my smelly boxes point.
Uh-huh.
But yes, that's it for part 2. So, on to part 3, and this is the last part we'll cover in this section of the podcast. The good parts for part 3, it opens with a scene of Central City. It shows Central City, population 1 million, whatever, and the city in the background. And then it pans over to show a reduced speed ahead sign, which was posted on the road. Which is
funny. If anyone doesn't know, Central City is where the Flash lives.
Yes,
so
which we get into the...
that was a cheeky little nod, and I like that.
Yeah, we'll get into... When we get to the bad stuff, we'll get into the introduction of Flash. But the next good thing for part 3 is later on, when Steppenwolf is stealing the box from Atlantis, Mara comes in and pulls the liquid from Steppenwolf,
face,
pulling his blood from his nose,
blood bending,
which was super
it was
cool.
amazing. She does this in both versions.
Mm-hmm.
He swims up to try and grab the box, and she pulls all the water away, so the gravity brings him down. And he can't reach it. That's a dope moment.
That's super cool.
Like, that was cool.
Yeah, and that's all the good for part 3. So,
yep.
Flash's introduction is based around a truck driver dropping his burger. We get an epic, super rad, mega cool shot of a sesame seed in slow motion falling towards the camera.
Yeah.
So
that doesn't do anything for anybody.
The entire reason we get introduced to Flash is because a guy dropped his burger.
And he was doing doomy eyes to a girl he just met.
Right.
Who happens to be Iris West.
Just so happens to be.
And he's trying to apply to a job at a pet store,
mm-hmm.
and she's driving away, and she drives into the way of this truck of this guy who's trying to pick up his burger,
mm-hmm.
and she gets thrown out of her car.
Her convertible
car. So none of this would have been possible if it weren't for a convertible car.
And if we need to go back and look at that. Did she put a seatbelt on and they just kind of ignored that?
Oh my god.
Because it wouldn't surprise me.
If she didn't, then what the hell, man?
Well, she very clearly didn't, because she went flying out of her.
Flew out of the car.
Yeah, wear your seatbelts. But anyway,
we have a lot of questions regarding the Flash's powers.
That's not even what's next, man.
Oh goodness.
So,
Sesame seed.
The sesame seed. Yeah, you're not even at the weird part. The crash occurs. Flash slows down time and watches this crash happen.
Right.
Then he decides to turn and run out of the
pet store.
Out of the pet store, which very much so, in my opinion, best slow-mo shot of the movie.
Look cool. He breaks the glass.
He breaks out of his shoes.
Yeah, but that's more that. So he rips through his shoes,
mm-hmm.
but not the rest of his clothing. But whatever.
We'll get to that.
He then bends the glass, and we see it like bending and then shattering. Cool.
Super cool.
And then he slides to stop himself.
And
he slides, and he's breaking the pavement as he does it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know enough about physics or anything to really comment. And they were mostly consistent with his powers having some detrimental effects on everything around him.
Mm-hmm.
So then when he saves Iris...
Before we get to him saving Iris...
Okay.
He spends a good chunk of time, like, caressing her hair.
Right, I was going to say, like, it was gross.
Yeah, it was just gross. Caressing her hair.
She's also surrounded, because, like, before this truck hit her, it hit a hot dog stand.
Mm-hmm.
So she is flying through the air, surrounded by hot dogs.
Which...
He then takes one and puts it in his pocket.
Uh-huh.
He then, caresses her hair. Creepy. But then he is very, very meticulously careful about how he then puts her on the ground as to not, like, kill her.
Yeah.
But this whole scene, they're playing really weird music. Like, lyrical
mm-hmm.
music. And it's supposed to be kind of romantic, I think. But it's also jarring.
Yeah.
Because it goes from that, and then he stops using his powers... And as soon as he stops using his powers, her car just explodes.
Explodes in the background.
And the drastic change of tone was so funny.
Yeah.
I just lost it. We both lost it.
Yeah.
So it's just... In the arms of the angels. It was
fire
and
and black smoke.
It was so funny.
And then it cuts to the burger guy again. And he's very much like,
oh,
what happened?
And it cuts back to Flash. He's still in the pet store with the dogs, and he gives the dog a hot dog. And he's profoundly goofy and dorky and silly. And I thought that was Justice League reshoots trying to make a character that could compete with Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's clearly not.
Right.
So I love Ezra Miller. I do not like his portrayal or the direction that they are giving this Barry Allen Flash.
Yeah.
Barry Allen is a dork, and sometimes even a dumbass. But what we are getting from Ezra Miller is Wally West or Bart Allen.
Super goofy.
This is not what Barry Allen is. It's just not.
So yeah. Flash's inconsistency comes later in this, but we can go ahead and discuss it now.
Okay. Want to end on the Flash then? We'll get some of this in there.
We have so much more in this part, man. We got to get through it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not complaining. It's just we're almost an hour and a half in.
I know.
Okay, keep going. What you got?
Otherwise, the next part's going to be 2.5 hours. Like, we got to split it in half.
Keep going.
So the inconsistency with Flash's powers. The Speed Force in a lot of universes sort of it's the catch-all that fixes all the problems. It's what protects him and everything he's wearing or all the people that he runs with from damage. Because if you're, moving super fast and you catch somebody and take them with you, every bone in their body is going to shatter.
Right, you've liquefied their insides.
Yeah, which the Speed Force is kind of written in to prevent that. It allows him to do these cool moments without killing everybody. Which, there's a weird consistency of that happening and it also not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he runs, it doesn't seem like his clothes really flow all that much.
No.
He tears out of his shoes, though,
mm-hmm.
which shows a weird,
Right, he's got a super suit made of spaceship parts. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, when he uses his powers at one point, when Batman throws the Batarang at him,
yep,
and he's just standing there and lightning's going off, his hair is, blowing in the wind.
Yeah.
But, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't be.
But, I'd also point that if he's in his Speed Force bubble,
mm-hmm.
then fine, maybe. But then at the same time, he turns around to grab the Batarang,
mm-hmm.
so did he just tear through his shoes? Because that's all he does to tear his shoes.
Yep.
In the first, it's just to move his feet.
And it just doesn't happen in that scene.
So it's this, I find this a lot in, again, Zack Snyder's superheroes, is there's a little bit of thought,
mm-hmm.
but not a whole lot. It's not followed through.
Right.
And
it feels like, I'll tell you what it is. It feels like every scene is thought about individually. It's not connecting all of the scenes. It's Flash turns, oh, it'd be cool if he tears his shoes. Cool. Then the next scene, the Flash turns and it's like, okay, he turns. And they just don't think about the shoes that second time. I will say they do keep the consistency of him being incredibly gentle when he's in super speed.
Right. And he's giving himself rules, which is cool. He knows his limitations.
Right. Avoiding touching people while he's doing a super speed outside of the other super beings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm into that. That's some consistency that we need. Everything else is just sort of wishy-washy. It's back and forth.
Yeah.
Next we get to the origin of Cyborg. Specifically, the winning the championship, looking at the empty seat, dad's not there. Driving home with... I didn't think about this the first time. He was driving home with his mom.
Hmm.
Isn't he a college athlete?
Yeah.
Whatever, I guess we'll pass that. But he's driving home with his mom. He begins to cry because his dad wasn't there. He was busy with work.
Mm-hmm. Which is a consistent thing, so there's family drama.
Yep, absolutely fine. That's fine so far. Mama Borg turns over and, while driving is speaking to him and trying to, console him and make the fact that his dad wasn't there a little easier. To which we can't really... What happens is a truck comes in, slams her side of the car, and kills her, injures him.
Injures his entire body.
Whole body.
Which I don't know about his classic comic book origin, but in recent comic books, the ones that most of these movies are being heavily inspired by, that is not what happens.
Right.
It's supposed to be kind of Silas's fault, in that Cyborg goes to confront him in a lab that he's working on, and then Victor actually starts messing with the tech, and there's an explosion, and Silas uses the technology around him. In this, it's a car accident.
Right.
Very cliche, honestly, because we had a car accident scene just before this.
Yeah.
With Iris.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that happened. We get one in Shazam as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of car accidents. But then we get a line from Cyborg. What's that line, Drew?
That line is later on when Victor and Silas are having a conversation. Cyborg states to Silas, "Mom would still be around if you had made it to my game."
How?
The thing we were confused about, thinking back on this scene, is it very much seems like there's nothing that Victor's mom did wrong.
Yeah.
It feels like the truck ran a red light.
Or if she somehow ran a red light, it was because she was distracted by him,
right?
Who was again upset about his dad. But it's not shown.
Right.
We do not get an outside perspective of where she is and what she's doing. She's driving and just looking over to his side now and then, and he's not like losing it. He's just a little wimpy, teary-eyed. Yeah. Like, it's not a huge, massive distraction. So it doesn't make any sense to blame him. So not only that, but again, in the comics, it is very much arguable that it is his father's fault, but it's also Victor's fault. Mm-hmm. When he goes and he messes with the technology, or he causes the accident himself, or it's Silas's neglect that led to it. It didn't lead to this. Cyborg's kind of emotional background is completely undercut by this. And for him to blame his dad makes no sense. And Cyborg is not that kind of character where he just completely...
Right. And I'll point that out here too. This isn't something we discussed either. Because we don't see anything of Silas before this, it very much feels like this is a one-time thing. Like, yeah, Dad's not here. He was busy tonight. Yeah. It doesn't feel like Silas has done anything wrong throughout the entirety, and Victor blames him for everything, which doesn't say it's like neglect from Silas. It just feels like Victor's being an asshole about it.
Right. And if you want to get even more picky about this, if this is a consistent thing, why are you surprised? Yeah. Why are you? Why is it such a big deal? He had this awesome football moment again, painfully slow motion the whole time.
The whole football scene.
But he did it. He got a score. He won. It was like Gotham State versus Wisconsin, whatever, big time, cool thing. Yep. And he's super excited. His team is surrounding him. Everyone's cheering for him. And then he sees the empty seat of his dad, and his whole mood changes. I am biased, I suppose, when it comes to some family things, but my God, why do you care? Right. This great moment, and you're going to let it be undercut by what is implied to be your consistently absent father?
And that's...
why did you think this was different?
Right. That's something like... I have an incredible relationship with my dad. He was at most of my track stuff. I did a lot of track. But even for the ones that he wasn't at, important competitions, if I looked over and saw he wasn't there, it would be, I'll tell him about it later. Yeah. And I'm going to celebrate with my friends and all the people who care about me right now.
Uh-huh. And in the comics and animated movies of recent times, he does have a great moment, football-wise, and he goes to confront his father. He goes,
and with that, it's always, hey, Dad, guess what? We won the game. Isn't that awesome? And he's like, cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and he just doesn't acknowledge him. Right. And on top of that, this is an important part, because this is where it gets weird. Yeah. Because Victor goes to the lab in the comics and in animated movies, he goes to confront his father while he's working. The accident is caused by advanced or alien technology, and then he is fixed by advanced or alien technology, because he's there on site.
Right. Right.
Silas goes to the hospital. We see Victor, who... is told, already a torso in the hospital, which is weird.
We're told that he's not going to survive.
He's already a mess, which means he had to have stolen his body to take it to a lab. Full on Little Miss Sunshine style. Yeah. Because how would you have done that otherwise?
And later on, it's brought up that the mother box has never brought anything back to life before when they're thinking about using it to bring Superman back. And when we see Victor's origin, which is our next point, we see Victor connected to no life support machines with no arm, no lower body, just the upper half of his torso, like ribcage and up, down to his elbow on his right arm, and his head all, mangled from the accident. And they're like, yeah, well, it brought Cyborg back. And Aquaman said, well, he wasn't dead yet. It's like, how... Right. Dude was stapled to a wall, and you're going to say he was alive?
Uh-huh. And then on top of that, this is something that I'm more annoyed about. We see how he is transformed into Cyborg. The mother box combines technology around him and converts his flesh into a machine. And then Silas stops it before it can complete, which is why he has the half and half Cyborg classic face. But that means a lot of what makes Cyborg so compelling, again, is gone. He does not have other fleshy parts. He's no longer a cyborg. He's Robot Man with a face.
Yep.
He's got a brain and a robot body. One of the coolest moments I feel from the Flashpoint animated movie, when everything's all messed up and they're all fighting, but like Cyborg is being attacked and fought, and they rip his armor off, and he still has a heart. Mm-hmm. He has internal organs. He has to keep it safe. He can't just rush into battle the same way Iron Man can.
Right, very Darth Vader.
Yeah, exactly. He's got fleshy parts to keep protected.
Yeah.
But this version doesn't. And it's weird that Batman has a robot voice with his mask or whatever, but Victor doesn't, even though his neck is entirely mechanical.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't know.
So
every bit of Cyborg is just, it's not Cyborg.
Yeah, moving on to the next Cyborg-related thing is Silas had a moment where he wanted to connect with Victor. He wanted to talk with Victor and discuss, like, I'm your dad, I'm always going to be there for you, that kind of a thing. So what he did is recorded a message on a tape, set it on a counter, and left. Just completely left him alone. Which takes all of the, like, weight of a conversation out for a moment that happens, at this point, an hour and a half later.
Right. It's also, that's been done several times.
Mm-hmm.
They did that twice, back to back, in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Peter Parker does that with an Uncle Ben recording on his phone, and then a Gwen Stacy recording on his computer. That has been done many times.
And that's the thing. Those, if my memory serves, those are like messages, like it's a voicemail. Uh-huh. It's something that was recorded not because... It was recorded... I don't even know how to say it. It was recorded because they can't get a hold of Peter. Not, I'm going to record this and then go drop it off.
Right.
See my son face to face and then
Peter
leave him
Parker
alone.
Ignores a call from Uncle Ben and he records it, and then he starts to listen to it after he dies and he can't, so he just doesn't. Right. And then at the end of the movie, we listen to the recording. At the end of the movie, we listen to Gwen Stacy's recording. And then at the end of this movie, we get Silas's recording, and I honestly don't know a single thing it said because I just... It was so choppy, and it just felt...
it was like, I'm your father, you're a robot, but you're also a man, kind of thing.
I don't know, it was whatever.
But we'll move on past that into what you asked about earlier. Lois.
Yeah. She is nothing
more than a plot device.
And like this classic DC Comics character who has got spunk and chutzpah, and she's standing up to villains very often, and she's literally the point man for Superman, like all this cool stuff. She is nothing in this movie.
She's shown
like a Superman mourner.
She's shown for a few minutes at a time.
Every time.
On top of the hour.
Yeah, and every time it has to do with Superman, and it's just sadness.
That's it. And
again, there's a lot of none of this makes sense, because they say that she's not been to work for several weeks, several months or whatever, but she's in this great, big, amazing apartment in Metropolis. Mm-hmm. Like, her business is also failing, so she should be able to afford that in the first place.
I want to bring up another point.
Yeah.
She, during this, actually it's a scene in part 4 is when Martha comes over, which we'll talk about in the next
we're going to save that for the next video.
But just something there, just to get it off my chest since we're talking. It's revealed then that she's pregnant, which has no impact on the rest of the movie.
No.
It's not mentioned again.
No, because that was supposed to lead into the next movie.
But they didn't even do anything beyond mentioning the possibility. They didn't even confirm it. They mentioned the possibility. They showed her taking a pregnancy test. And that's it. So just Lois being... The only time she's important is to smile at Superman.
Yeah.
And then she's not used again.
Right.
Not even seen again.
But they had to give us these little tiny snippets because they couldn't introduce a character 2 hours in. They had to keep giving us like, oh, don't worry, she's here. She's here. Don't you worry, she's here.
Which truly, every time it felt like, oh, okay. Like, glad we just wasted 3.5 minutes watching her walk.
And we joked about it the second time we saw her, because we saw her and we went in an hour, nothing. We see her again, and I was like, wow, are we going to get like Lois once an hour? And it was another hour before she popped up again. Like, it's just... And then she only, once she actually does become relevant, she's only there to keep Superman from killing everybody.
And that's something that we can apply to Lois that we already applied to Bruce. This movie just goes against the character that it's trying to portray. Because one thing we know about Lois is that she is a self-motivated go-getter. And the fact that she has spent weeks, months, whatever, locking herself away in her apartment, just the only thing she does is she goes and buys coffee for her and a cop, and looks at the memorial and then goes home and cries.
I feel like Lois Lane is the kind of character who would bury herself in work.
Absolutely.
If she was upset, because she would not want to confront it at first.
Absolutely.
This just goes back to, we'd rather have slow-mo sadness that fits Zack Snyder's style than to actually reflect what the character probably would have done.
Moving on from that, because there's more Lois to discuss in part 4. Barry goes and sees his dad in prison. Yep. And it's just an array of running puns.
Yep. And he does not know. His dad does not know.
Dad doesn't know. You're running around in circles. You're chasing the wrong leads.
It reminded me...
You gotta hit the ground running.
Right. It reminded me... Because they do that a lot in superhero movies. We're not going to give Snyder shit just for that. But this level and the number of puns reminded me of the first 2003, 2004 Fantastic Four movie, where Reed Richards, the guy who's stretchy, someone says, "You're always reaching for the stars." And as soon as the Invisible Woman uses her powers for the first time, she's like, "It's nice to be seen."
Yeah.
And heard. And then they ask Ben, "How are you feeling?" "Oh, solid." Come on.
My issue with it is, on top of that, they're using all these puns, they're supposed to be like, oh, haha, funny, he's the Flash. This is a scene where his dad is saying, hey, give up on your dreams because it's not going to work out for you. The tone of the scene is so negative, so dark.
He wants him to no longer go into criminal justice for him. He wants him to live his life and forget about him. And Barry's not having it. He's all kinds of upset. But in this deep, tender moments, we've got running puns.
Yeah, we're just throwing in puns left and right. Then we push further. We get into the Batcave. We see Wonder Woman sitting, trying to find out who Victor is.
Oh my god!
And this is after after we saw Cyborg go into his mind palace of sorts, and
we see a visual representation of how the digital world is.
Right.
Much different from what we got in comparison to maybe Age of Ultron. We see what Jarvis and Ultron look like in the digital world. It's all just cubes and information. In this, we get the how we can perceive it in a way that makes sense, which I have my own issues with. But anyway, in this, we have a narration of Silas describing what Cyborg can do, and one of the things he says he can do is basically at a blink of an eye, he could launch every single nuclear weapon. It's nothing to him.
It's nothing.
No system can protect itself from him if he wants in. And then he reaches out to Wonder Woman to talk to her and says, "Meet here."
With a picture of a map.
With a map. And in Justice League, it's more like the screen kind of goes down in that that black box hackerish way, where it's "Why are you looking for me?" kind of thing, and she's typing and talking to him. It's like he's in the system. But in this version, it's how the last couple of years we've had that typing equivalent of "Well, you're a dick." "Well, you're a dick." Where every other letter is a different font or a different
uppercase,
capitalization.
lowercase, bold.
We get a "meet here," and every other letter is a different font. It is barely
size.
put together. Why would it be that?
Victor.
Why?
Victor is. It's proven he transfers money digitally. He changes somebody's bank information by looking at it,
and then hacks into an ATM.
Yes, without a single issue whatsoever, and yet he can't send an image without
It was just dumb. It would take more effort and actual thought, both making this movie and as Cyborg, to make that message look the way it did. I realized no one is going to care about this watching the movie, but this again is just showing the kind of thought or lack thereof that goes into the making of this.
Yeah.
Like, even if you wanted to somehow imply, ooh, the Wayne Enterprise Batman computers are so powerful, the Cyborg struggles, that's still stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, he's alien technology. Nothing can compare. Nothing can keep him out.
Right.
If anything, I feel like both versions are a little weird. It should have been like the whole screen goes off.
Yep.
And up in the left corner where it's like system ready, it should have been like
the blinking.
Yeah, it's like, Diana, what are you doing? Like, you want to meet here, and then meet here. It's just coordinates. But we get a weird map image,
mm-hmm.
and then that scene happens, and he's like all pissy with her.
Yeah, that's the next thing is the cyborg meeting.
Right? Like, why? Like, you called this meeting. What's your problem?
Yeah. That's my confusion about that scene. He said, "Let's meet here." He went there and said, like, he landed all,
and we saw him coming from a mile away.
Yep. Just
which put a pin in that.
Yeah. But he lands, and Diana's there, and he says, "What do you want from me?" And she says, "There's dangers coming, we need your help." And he says, "Never mind," and he leaves. And it's like, what was the point of even meeting that?
Like, yeah, why? Why did you... What was the point of that?
Right, and Diana was able to stop him and talk a little bit more before he,
Yeah, the only reason that scene exists is that he's aware of them for when his father is kidnapped, and then he's like, well, I'll join these guys. That's the only reason that scene was in there.
The last thing for part 3, which will be the last thing we touch on, who knows if it's going to be the last point, because this could branch into some stuff.
Oh, no.
We get the scene where Steppenwolf goes to Atlantis and steals, like, actually physically steals the box, which is where we get the really cool blood scene.
Bloodbending.
Yeah. Super cool fight.
Yep.
Steppenwolf steals the box, teleports away.
Yep.
Mera and Aquaman meet.
Yep.
And they have a casual conversation about how good of a mother Aquaman's mom was, and Aquaman didn't know. It's like, this is the same urgency that we missed with the Amazons too, where this is one of the artifacts of the universe that could destroy your planet, and instead of doing anything about it, you're talking about stuff that doesn't matter. Yeah. You're doing the equivalent of waiting a day and a half to alert Wonder Woman that it's gone, except you're just standing there, and instead of like, oh shit, we should go tell the guard, oh shit, we should go tell the Amazons, whatever, it's, hey, your mom was actually cool. You know that, right? Which has nothing to do with the urgency of the situation.
She's trying to encourage him to take on the role of fighting this. But, like, why can't you? You've done nothing but guard this box, and you can breathe on land.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why don't you go? You have more powers than he does.
Right.
Why don't you do this? It's like, well, why? Aquaman's like, well, why don't the rest of Atlantis do it? Like, well, because King Orm is causing all these issues, blah, 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 blah. Fine. But, like, you, Queen, Princess, Mera, whatever you have been doing nothing. And now the one thing you were doing is not here, so why don't you grab your trident and go up? Why don't you join the Justice League?
Right.
And fight alongside? Why does it have to be Aquaman?
Right.
I'm just now thinking of that.
Yeah, it's...
Again, no thought.
No thought, and it's the weird mix of the apocalyptic event, everyone's panicking, and nothing's happening urgently.
Yep.
Which just doesn't make sense. It's two conflicting ideas trying to be...
Always.
But okay, anyway, that's the first half of the movie.
Yep.
However long this ends up being, it's going to be a longer video. That's just how it's going to be. It's going to be a longer podcast. The next one's probably going to be similar length. We're going to cover the second half, which is part 4, 5, and 6, and the epilogue, which we only have.
And we've been jumping around a little bit as well. So
yeah, so there should be some points we should be able to hurry up on, but there's also some super big points that we'll have to cover. In the meantime, though, that's this. What? Just to kind of stop here and get away from the list and just into the movie. Did you enjoy it?
I can honestly say no.
Okay.
I will acknowledge that the cool things were cool, but I am not one of the... At this point in time, how long I've been watching movies and giving a shit about the little details, I can't turn that part of my brain off.
Right.
Especially when it is supposed to be something that is connected to other things.
Yeah.
So, the fact that it was also 4 hours
Yep.
I cannot see myself going back and sitting down and just watching this leisurely. I've never done that with Batman versus Superman, or really Man of Steel.
Right.
I've gone back and watched specific scenes because there are good parts, but I'm not gonna sit through the whole movie for those parts because I can't help but feel like the stuff that doesn't make sense doesn't make sense. I don't like that being in my face the whole time.
Right.
So overall, I could definitely say it's not a horrible movie by movie standards because there's a lot of the comic book stuff that bothers me. But did I enjoy it? No. Do I regret watching it? No,
absolutely not.
Not at all.
Cool.
But I personally did not enjoy it. I would almost rather watch Batman versus Superman.
Okay.
And I did not like that movie.
I'm sure we'll have more closing thoughts after we get through the next part. But I just wanted to get as we're halfway through, a good documented what we think overall. I would say I'm along the same lines, and I have some more outside of movie stuff to talk about with that. But I think I'll wait until the very end once we get all of everything else covered.
If you guys are still here, cool, awesome. There will be another one. If there are people still here, that means you're enjoying this or you want to hear more. So there will be another video, and it'll be up at the same time. So it'll either be linked, or just click it, whatever.
So this is going to be just for those who are trusted, loyal fans.
Yes.
If this kind of movie thing, if you're still here and you can hear this, I assume if you don't like this, you're not going to hear that. But we'll probably open the next one with this too. This movie review, movie watch, our opinion stuff for both this and for Godzilla versus Kong, we're going to probably throw this all up in 1 week. So we're going to get back to our normal nerdy conversations after this. It's just a single week that you can ignore the videos. That's fine. There's going to be 2 Snyder Cut. I don't see us getting 2 videos out of
Kong and Godzilla. I don't know. We'll see. But at the same time, we have 4 hours of materials.
We have 4 hours.
I can imagine one solid video just Godzilla.
I agree.
But
yeah. Past that, we're gonna get back onto our normal shit
after a while.
After this
and
week.
if for some reason you guys do like the movie talk and you don't hate our perspectives, I am planning to have a movie specific one.
It's gonna be this, but more structured, I assume.
Maybe it might
put
just
together.
It might. I almost wonder if it would be less structured because unless you hop on now and then, it's just going to be me talking to no one.
It is going to apply visuals though, which is something that we're going to like.
I'll have more of an analysis of certain things, but it's going to be a lot of me just kind of ranting. And I have some interesting perspectives now and then, and I look up. I often when I talk to people, I look up what people on the internet are saying are goods and or bads, and then I will have my perspective on why I think this bad is actually a good or this good is actually a bad.
Right.
So,
I assumed that too. It's not going to be an hour and a half long.
Probably not.
So
I'm going to do more of like 10 to 20 minute chunks.
Yeah. So if you do enjoy this, but don't want to sit through
an hour
and a half of it, then that's something to look forward to. Outside of that, we have Andrew's TikTok and Instagram. Always going to be linked down below.
Spooks Doodles.
Yep. Still accepting commissions, I'm sure.
Oh, of course.
And then
we've got Dallon's Tavern.
Yep, my D&D stuff, which because of this movie week, all of our side projects are slow going at the moment. But eventually we'll get more and more content out. And as soon as Andrew's movie channel starts to get up and running, we'll get all that stuff tagged as well.
Assuming you guys don't hate it.
Assuming you don't hate it. And if you do, that's fine.
That's fine.
I hate it already and I haven't started yet.
That's true. But
that's it. Man, Snyder.
Halfway through.
Let's end this part the way Snyder did, without
slow motion. Sesame seeds.
We should get burgers.
Want to get burgers? Want to go to Wendy's?
That's a good idea. Sesame burgers.
Should we put on sesame seeds actually? Just one burger.
Just a burger.
I've been eating a lot the last couple of days.